And hi there, Ron here of Variable Plane. Welcome to another episode of LarongAtin. Hi
Hello.
everyone.
Hello, good
Hi.
evening.
Hi.
And joined me tonight is beside me Sir Freddy and of course our friend Nico. So it's been a
And
month.
Pickle Rick here at the back.
Huh?
Si Pickle Rick nandito sa likod eh.
Oo nga, si Pickle Rick. Pickle Rick pala yun. Let's clarify. Pickle Rick siya.
No, that's not what you think it is. That's Pickle Rick.
Okay. Hi, Pickle Rick. Uh, so, before we go into our topic, what have you guys in the hobby? What have you guys been playing or doing? Crafting, designing, painting, anything that you're working on. I know, Nico, we can start with you. You have found a new hobby of sharing wisdom in social
yeah.
media. I'm a very avid follower.
I was wondering what you were leading up to. Like, I'm not doing anything. That's yeah. Yeah, so
Yes.
so if you've seen some of the videos, so yeah, I'm doing TikTok now. But anyways, so for those who might not know,
Good evening.
oh hi. Si Aya, so my wife, si Aya, is actually an indigenous person. Her family are Ibaloy, and they're actually descended from the chieftain of Baguio. So because of that, her family is very much into yung culture preservation, activism, anthropology. So they have all these books on Philippine culture, and every time I stay there, I actually sleep in their library. So if you saw the last stream, right, they're just books
Yeah.
all over there, right?
Right.
So
Right.
and sometimes I'm just like, while I'm falling asleep, just what that book sounds really interesting, and sometimes I just take one, read a bit about it, and and the things that you won't find that they don't teach in history class. And I've been actually wanting to share it, uh,
Mhm.
the info that I see there. And yeah, so I finally got to start it a week ago. I brought some of the books home with
Nice.
me. Yeah, it's gonna be a while since I go back to Baguio, so I'm hoping it's enough info to fill that period. So yeah, so that's what I've been
So how
doing.
how
You
do
can
they
check it
find
out.
you in in TikTok? What handle are you using?
Yeah, it's Nicanor with 7 R's. So it's NICANORRRRRR. So I just kept
Okay.
adding R's until TikTok said it was a valid username. That's why.
Okay, okay, okay.
Not very
Yeah,
smart
yeah.
now that I think about it, because it's gonna be hard to remind people of how to find
Yeah,
me.
I'm gonna share that because I follow this teacher that does a lot of history content also in TikTok, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so convenient because you just like you have this
Mm-hmm.
small minute to learn something quite interesting, quite new. You'd never really see that for mo- if parang the stuff that you share there the chance for us to ever learning about that is close to nil, right?
Yeah,
Because
and the first day I did it, so I was reading this book called Kalinga Sacrifice, and it reads like a thesis. It was probably a thesis. So
Mhm.
I mean, if anyone who's read academic papers, you know how much of a headache that is because it's so detailed, so much information, stuff like that. So yeah, I had to like read it a few times just to analyze exactly what he was saying and to distill it into something that makes sense for a minute. So it's still a challenge. I have my work cut out for me to continue that thing.
Nice, nice.
Mm.
And again, I think for game designers, it's something that it there's also a lot of inspiration coming from history, coming from its content. It's things
Yes.
that you wish you know uh, to be inspired of,
Yeah.
um comparing it to the typical tropes of fantasy or history, but
Mhm.
learning about our history, it's also something very interesting.
Yeah.
So I have
And
shared Nico's link
oh,
there.
thanks. And I'm
So
happy because I don't know if you know this, but I actually entered game design to promote Philippine culture. So that's why like our company is
mm,
Balangay. What we really wanted to do initially was to do something like magic or anything fantasy, but it's based on Philippine culture. So for me, it was using like the medium of games to promote and explore our culture. But then the funny thing I realized later on is that pre-colonial culture is actually more popular than games. So it's kind of weird. You're using a less popular medium of tabletops to promote, and it's actually more popular and it's easy to get people into it. So
Mhm.
at least with this, parang okay, diretso na ako sa purpose of why I ended up in game design in the first place.
mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, yeah, I think it's a good way to support the medium.
Mhm.
Cool, cool, cool. How about you,
Yeah.
Sir Freddy? What have you been toying around with or doing?
Well, binuksan ko yung Pickle Rick game. I played the
Okay.
game. It's playable by solo. You can solo
Oh,
the game
Mm.
okay.
actually.
Wow.
Uh, it's a two-player game that you can play solo.
Okay.
So it also came with miniatures. So I painted the two miniatures.
Nice.
Si Pickle
Actually,
Rick at saka si Jaguar.
okay. Okay.
I knew it.
See,
I knew KO was gonna say something. I was already thinking it. Okay, KO's going to say something about soloing this pickle. I just like, kept my mouth shut, and then there it is.
there it is.
Yeah.
You guys can.
Lumabas na ba si Keo dun sa with his new background on a video? Yung patay Cindy background niya.
Di ba? Di ba? Hindi pa. Yung ano niya,
Yes, his
yung
new
kanyang,
lighting effects na
Mm.
patay
yes.
Cindy.
Yeah.
Oh, yun.
Bukas
Okay.
daw, bukas daw.
Bukas.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Me, I have been playing video games actually,
Mm.
and I was surprised on a video game I played called Sparklight. It's pretty much Zelda, But
Mm.
um, it was interesting in the sense that you don't level up. Actually, ganun naman si Zelda, no? You don't really level up. You just get better equipment. But you have this sense of progress because you get to buy new equipment and wear new shoes, and but your character skill from the beginning until the end is the same. nothing nothing changed, nothing is advanced, and maybe the player who's playing is a little bit more skilled in moving, but I found it as an interesting design choice to deliberately not give sort of player progress to the character, but just to the stuff that they can access to. And the very unique part of that is meron siya kasing parang switchboard kung saan mo nilalagay yung mga items mo, power-ups mo and stuff. Pagdating mo sa dulo, where you have to fight the boss, lahat ng parang convenience tools mo, kailangan mo siyang tanggalin kasi you're not gonna be powerful enough. So pagdating sa dulo, it's weird because you're now this really powerful character because of your weapons. But you don't have a way to find your destination kasi wala ka na nung map ng ganitong area, wala ka na nung pang-attract ng ganitong na disconnect si Nico. Wala ka nang pang-attract ng mga items mo. Basta parang it was a interesting design choice na you want to be more powerful but it's not going to be convenient. You don't have your maps, you don't have anything. It's just your weapon and health and shields. That's it. Pero ang problema is now you're gonna run around the map kasi ano siya, procedurally generated. You're gonna run around the map until you find the the exit where it leads to that dungeon of your final boss. So it's weird. So parang ikaw ngayon, sige na nga, I'll lessen my health a little bit and so that I can at least bring this map, which is like the area 1 map, so at least I can find the exit of the parang level 5 map, and then I can just wing myself and search there. So it's an interesting design choice kasi normally ang pag level up ng design ng mga games packet lang ng packet eh. Ito pagdating niya sa dulo para siya nagpa-plateau na you keep going up and down depending on your situation. So unlike most games where you just become more and more and more and more powerful, this one has given you that sense of control na okay, you want to be able to do this, you can't do this. You want to be able to do this, you can't do this. So yun siya. That is Sparklight, and that's what I've been playing over the weekend. Kinaadikan ko siya, natapos ko siya. And na-disconnect ulit si Nico. Yun. In the meantime,
Natapos mo siya in one weekend?
yeah, it's a short, maybe
Okay.
like a few. It's just a few maps, parang 5 areas. But the first few parts were a grind. So siguro I've been grinding the first few levels, a few quite some time kasi you have to ano siya eh. Pero syempre just like a programmer, you kind of like realize, hey, so when you move from one map to another, parang nagre-respawn yung area. So I just look for a map section where if I exit, the tree would respawn, and then I can hit it and it will drop some coins, and then exit out and then exit back in, it will respawn and then hit it. So yun. So para lang, that's what I nag-grind ako para magkapera. And then eventually I have enough money, spent maybe 30 minutes or like an hour just doing that or maybe more. And then finally I had the money to like buy stuff, upgrade my stuff. And then I can now go out. Kasi ang hirap eh nung una. I was quite weak. So, Nico's having some challenges with connecting, but he'll join us soon. Sir Freddy, ano bang mga worker placement? So our topic today is worker placement, and we're gonna try to deconstruct to the best of our effort what worker placement is. And we'll cycle back to it later once Nico is able to reconnect. Pero
Mhm.
something a preview lang of what Nico was mentioning nga, with the trajectory of how ito I'm quoting Nico. Nico was saying with the trajectory of how worker placements are being designed today,
Mhm.
um, worker placement might not necessarily become a mechanic anymore, but just a style of game because it's going towards that direction where it's a dice game, which doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell you how the game will actually play because the world of dice game means
Mhm.
okay, what type of dice game, right? Marami na siyang subgenre. Yan.
Yep.
Sana nakabalik na si Nico.
And
Still low.
dice games don't necessarily mean it's being thrown as
Yeah.
a randomizer.
Yon.
Dice
Hi,
games
Nico.
nowadays are being used as ano
Hi,
eh.
hopefully I'll be okay now. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit lagging, but that's okay. Yun, I was sharing with everyone, Nico, what you mentioned earlier before the stream, na yun nga, you were saying the trajectory of worker placement games. Oop,
Okay.
uh,
He's still in, but it's only audio
yeah,
only.
oo. Can you
Yeah, I'm trying to find
narinig?
the better spot. Okay.
Okay, all right, sige. I could, hold on, meron akong audio avatar. Show an avatar. Okay, there. So you could turn off your
Parang
camera if you want.
mamaya parang seance na tayo. Nico, are you there? Nico.
Ayan, yan. Ayan na. So, there's a setting for us so that we can put Nico on stream even if he doesn't have video. That might help. So, the trajectory of how, of what Nico said, the trajectory of how worker placements are being designed today will reach to a point na para siyang dice. What is a dice game? Sobra yun nga, sabi niyo nga Sir Freddy, it's used as as a resource, it's used as another worker placement unit, it's used
Mm-mm.
as points, it's used as buildings, it's used as levels. There's so many. It doesn't, and then sometimes a lot of games they're no longer rolled. It's like wow, okay,
Yep.
dice game na walang rolling of dice. And maybe even to the level of card play. When card play is not a mechanic, but we know what card play means, and we know what card games are. But when you say, "Oh, it's a card game," that doesn't tell you what that
Yeah.
means, right? Diba parang
Yeah.
okay, what type of card game? Is it like a Munchkin? Is it like a Magic the Gathering? Is it another subgenre? Is it the deck building? So yun yung interesting trajectory
Mm-hmm.
um ng where worker placement is going to uh ano ba sir ang mga nalaro nyo ng worker placement games?
Well, ang ang una kong nalaro na worker placement, it's probably I'm thinking it's Kalos.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that
One of
is the
the
grandfather of worker
mm,
placement, 'di ba? I
oo.
think that was the first one. Uh, it was around the time I was also playing with Acquire and other stuff na gano'n, na hindi pa gano'n ka-developed yung ano nun, eh. Uh,
Okay.
and I really like Kalos. Uh, when I played it, unfortunately, not a lot of people liked playing it. uh, and much later on, I played Lords of Waterdeep.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Yun, maraming natuwa na sa Lords of Waterdeep kasi mas thematic siya. And personally, I also enjoyed it more dahil Dungeons and Dragons nga siya. O,
Right.
yan nga yung nasa picture is the Lords of Waterdeep. Uh, but the first one I played was Kalos. And then later on, after Lords of Waterdeep, I played a lot of worker placement. It's actually, yan yung category ng games na I would say, kung somebody asked me what type of board games I like best, it's probably the worker placement game.
Mm-hmm.
So right now my favorite, ang sinasabi kong favorite ko is Architects of the West.
Mm-hmm.
West Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tapos prior to that it was ano ba 'yun? What's that whaling game?
Raiders of the North Sea.
No, not Raiders. It was, I forgot the name. It's a small game lang eh.
You can describe the
New
mechanics.
Bedford. New
New
Bedford.
Yeah,
Bedford.
New Bedford.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Except that sabi ko nga yung ang problema lang doon, it doesn't really, it's not
The
yung
the
team niya is
topic
parang,
does not.
uy, let's kill all the whales.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
harvest them for their oil.
Yeah.
Oo, hindi lang nag-age yung ano, yung theme. If they could have chosen tuna or something, right? Pero talaga yun naman yung history ng New Bedford eh. Pero
Mhm.
yun, syempre.
Pero actually may lesson din siya embedded din because if
Oh
you
yeah.
whale, nauubos yung whale sa game eh.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
it's just that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yun.
So for the ones who are, I'm sure most of our viewers are quite familiar. But for the ones who are not familiar, when we say worker placement games, um, the general idea, and of course this is the traditional way of looking at them, pero with the way things are going, we're just putting a caveat. It's not entirely true anymore. So you have a map, a board, and you have these locations. So parang yan, itong box na to, you can see there's this black meeple over there, and it's a worker placement spot. So it's just like this one. It's a grinning l- lion tavern. You can put one of a worker in that same shape, and then the effect is indicated here. You get two rogues or two black cubes. Um, Similarly, parang itong building na to is another one that was added in the game, and somebody could go there and they can get two cubes, no, na ano nila, um, uh, two cubes of their choice, kung anumang color.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
makakaiba sila ng colors. The colors represent something. And generally, the old formula is you are putting your workers in different locations. You take turns to do that.
Mhm.
And you're doing this for certain objectives. So parang itong si ano meron siya ditong um,
Quests.
quests, and the
Yeah.
quests, ito yung requirement, you're gonna turn those in. If you do, you get points, etc., etc. So that's generally how they would work, uh,
Mhm.
in a classic sense, no? Kasi
Mhm.
nga that's what hindi ko na like. Medyo nagsisimula na maging up in the air kung ano yung
Mhm.
mechanics. Pero I think there
Mhm.
are some ano pa rin eh, some common ground
Mhm.
on so far, no, na hindi pa talaga may certain elements na
Mhm.
common pa. So Nico, can you share with us
Yeah.
ano yung mga observations mo on
Yeah.
what's commonly
So,
the
so welcome back to me. I'm
welcome
back.
back, Nico.
Medyo nagloko yung router. So, anyways, yeah, I was telling Ron kanina, I don't know if he mentioned it while I was out. Before, with the classical worker placement, I prefer the term action drafting
Mm.
over worker placement, because worker placement, it kind of feels like a thematic explanation. It's like the fluff of what's
Mhm. Yeah.
happening, right? The more mechanical, the more mechanically descriptive term is your drafting actions. Because you're
Right.
taking turns from an action pool, putting your worker, and essentially blocking the other players from using it. But yes, Ron and I were talking about worker placement has evolved and is evolving away from that, because like now you
Mm-hmm.
have games like Architects, wherein you can take the same space as another player, so you're no longer drafting actions. um what else? I don't know what I missed there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
similar to that, I think I thought Sina Sir Freddy, the game Age of Civilization, it is by feel a worker placement game, pero wala siyang concept ng blocking. Kasi when you do
Mm.
your worker placement turn, lahat ikaw lang mag-isa. I
Mhm.
put my worker here and then worker there and worker here and then I get these resources done. And then
Yeah.
your turn. And parang the old premise of okay, shucks nauna siya doon, I wanted to go there. Nawawala na rin yun. Hindi na rin
Yeah.
siya truth in worker placement game design.
Yeah.
Pero what is still common, I think, is you're still doing this to get
Mhm.
some sort of points. Parang
Yeah.
Yeah.
actions that you're taking um, are actually correlated to some sort of resource which is meron siyang internal
Yeah.
in-game numerical value
Mm.
that is related to points. Not
Yeah.
Yeah.
necessarily na directly siya magko-contribute.
Mm.
Pwedeng ano pa siya, it takes a few more things to process before siya maging
Mhm.
points.
Mm.
Yeah, the way I look at worker placement, sabi nga ni Nico kanina, worker placement is more thematic. Was it Nico or was it Ron?
Yes,
Is more
Nico said.
thematic rather than an actual mechanic because ultimately worker placement is let's say tatlo tayo, we all start with the same, let's say same number of actions available. Let's say
Mhm.
we all have 3 workers or 4 workers na pare-pareho, and then we trade that for something else.
Mhm.
Na hopefully what we're doing all the time is incrementally going forward kung ano man yung goal natin. So yung trade
Mhm.
natin yun eh. So it's basically a trading game where I'm trading this turn na resource ko na constantly bumabalik,
Mhm.
na every turn nagre-replenish siya. So I'm trading it for something else na gusto kong marating sa dulo.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Right.
actually, I think it's a very very good metaphor for life. Of course, in life we don't all start with the same sets of actions, but
Mm.
like we trade our time, we trade
Mhm.
our efforts, di ba? Yung
Right.
utak natin, pawis natin for things that we want to achieve. Parang ganun siya eh. So that's
Mhm.
Mhm.
how I look at worker placement. Kaya
Mhm.
yun, it's very it's economics, and it's really about trading what you have for something else.
Mm.
Parang ganun.
Yeah.
You start with your own set of resources. That yun nga,
Yes.
you're right. You replenish each round. Actually, there's a game that just reminded me. You compare nyo nga sa life, and actually there's an actual board game called Pursuit of Happiness. Na yun yung actual mechanic. You have time,
Mhm.
and you
Mhm.
are when you're young, you have a lot of time, and as you grow older, the time gets become shorter,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and you're using time to study, you're using
Mhm.
time to get this skill, and itong skills na to are giving you these tokens na for the next stage in life. You can then now trade in. You go to work, and you now have since you have gained sort of more knowledge when you started, you can now achieve this level of type of work. You can be at this job position and so forth. And
Yeah.
now that you can do that, eventually you'll find a partner and retire, etc., etc. Pero mas stress ka. So,
Yeah.
but nakakatuwa siya na um, worker placement is really around that loop na you have
Mhm.
these resources, you get it,
Yes.
you then allot them on different areas. You could allot them all at the same time, or you could allot, depending on sa design, allot them by turn. But regardless, it will eventually, the loop will eventually end. No,
Mhm.
hindi siya talagang forever yun lang na yun lang ang ginagawa nyo and tuloy-tuloy siya. There's an end, and then somehow it gets transitioned to the next phase. Although in some worker placement games, the loops are not all ending at the same time. Charterstone, for example, after mo ma-bump off, inalagay mo na yung mga ano mo, and if you have no more workers, you end your loop, but other players might still have some workers that they can still use, and their loop is still running. But kind of the same as life. So mas marami silang
I have a
resources. So
question
that
dun sa Pursuit of Happiness. Was it ever classified as a worker placement game?
yes, sir. It had worker placement time counters in you. You really
Okay.
Mhm.
you spend ano, you spend time. Your workers are the time,
Mhm.
and um, yung pinaka funny doon is kasi it's trying to manage stress. So
Mhm.
yung pinaka best way to find that to win the game is mag-exercise ka na maaga para magkaroon ka ng extra health kasi kakainin siya at the end of the game.
Mm.
So yun yung yun yung but it was a worker placement game. Matagal lang. I think yun din ang challenge ng worker placement games in the past.
Mhm.
Although even the new ones may mga it tends to become really thinky uh, at the end of the game kasi nga you're trying to just find your best
Yeah.
option that's left
Mhm.
that's available to you based on what
Mhm.
resources you have, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Agree.
I actually find the end of a worker placement game the easier part. Kasi
Uh,
wala na eh. You just have to make the best with
Yeah.
whatever you have left.
Ma-maximize mo na lang kung anong meron ka eh.
Oh,
Nico,
yeah.
kasi you're good at it. Sa mga
Sa
katulad
umpisa
ko,
actually yung challenging
Lagi.
pagka yung nag-aagawan pa kayo kung ano yung path na gagawin nyo eh.
Yeah.
Lalo na pagka
Actually,
may
I noticed na especially with like architects, so yung mga worker placement na hindi clear kailan yung ending, doon ako
Mhm.
mas nahihirapan. Kasi hindi ako
Okay.
magaling mag-estimate ng end. So when
mm,
it's clear cut na you have only X turns left, yun na mas
na ma-maximize mo.
na ma-maximize ko. Okay. So wait, can we go back lang one slide?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, if you're making I just want to explain this. So, if you're making a worker placement game, what you have to the way that well, at least kami when we've talked about worker placement games or similar games, we always try to think of it in terms of action economy. So you'll
Mhm.
have to get used to that term of an action economy. So what does that mean? So as we've been saying kanina, every game, you can sort of analyze every game as a game wherein players are given resources and then you're trying to use those resources to win the game. So like the sa Magic, you have what you call card advantage, which is kind of the simplification of an economy of a Magic game. So for worker placement, you have action economy because um, the concept of using the lens of an economy in a game is you're trying to simplify as much of the game in terms of a single resource, which is the most like basic or the main resource of the game. And with most worker placement games, your main resource is actually your turns or your actions. Like then how many times you can put down a meeple or a worker on a spot. Because for
Mhm.
most worker placement games, you have equal turns. Diba? That's usually the ending pa is like if a game ends ganito, you make sure that everyone has equal turns just so that everyone has the equal amount of the most basic resource, which is your turns. And then from there, you can kind of convert. So parang currency, you're converting
Yep.
pesos to dollars and something like that. You're converting all your other resources into the basic resource, which is turns. So like that's why here I put here Lords of Waterdeep is a good example because it's a very simplified
Mhm.
economy, right?
Yep.
Because because you're trying to convert turns their basic resource into
To
points, which is
VP.
your end game goal. And because of the way Lords of Waterdeep is structured, na one cube, I have a pointer here. Okay. One cube is equal to one victory point, and in a way, one action, because right, the most basic action is you get the yellow, orange, white, and purple cubes.
Mhm.
One action is equal to 1 to 2 cubes, depending on the
Mhm.
spot you go to. So therefore, one action, one turn, at its minimum should be equal to half a point or 1 point.
Mhm.
So when you're analyzing the game, you're trying to balance it out. You can start converting everything into points. You convert your
Right.
turns, convert your actions, you convert the spaces into points, and that's where you can look na like riskier plays should have a higher point to action conversion.
Yep.
Safer plays should have a lower point to action conversion because they're safer.
Right.
So ganun. That's kind of, and then you can put that on a spreadsheet. You can start computing them na. So that's the like the flow of the math behind balancing a worker placement game.
Yeah. Yeah. The I think Clint even asked. So it is Age of Civ uh, called the worker placement game or an action selection game, and I think it's still called the worker placement game primarily because of that. Yeah, that you have this set of
Just get a
workers that
charger.
is volatile. No, that yeah. Go ahead. The amount of workers is not finite. It's
Mhm.
consumable. It can be pwede siyang maubos, pwede siyang madagdagan. And because of that, it's kind of action selection. That's true because at the heart of it nga, what Nico mentioned earlier, it's like action drafting, but hindi na nga siya drafting. It's like another way of action selection. But you need to be able to indicate what are your available actions,
Mhm.
how many actions you can take. So para siyang action points. But instead of using points, you have workers. And then you have spots
Yep.
where you can go put them, and because there are spots, kaya siya nagiging parang worker placement game. You have this sense of, okay, I go to this spot and I can do this. And I think that, kaya nga eh, sabi nga ni Nico, hindi siya mechanic, it's an action. It's you taking a worker and putting it on a spot.
Mhm.
Kasi isang example niya nga kanina, Mintworks. Wala nang worker yung Mintworks eh. They're mints. But it still feels and works like a worker placement game. It's actually one of the most uh, um, compact worker placement games out there. It's also one that was really made well. Pero wala siyang, I mean, your mints are your workers and kind of your points. So you're you're putting it to gain, you put it one mint to gain two mints. So parang you now get your mint back, and parang yun yung sinasabi ni Nico na you now gain sort of a turn forward instead of a turn backward, kasi if you went to a location that just gave you a mint back but you spent a mint in, then you've lost a turn technically kasi it didn't give you points. You just
Mm.
ended up with the same spot, which is
You
technically something that moved you behind.
Mhm.
yung I think yung mint works is even more straightforward because it doesn't even pretend that the mints are workers.
Yeah.
The mints are currency. Eh.
Yeah.
Actually, in worker placement, uh, the worker is also currency, except that it's a currency that replenishes every turn. Now,
Mhm.
sa mint works, yung mint mo, siya mismo yung pinapalago mo eh. 'Di ba?
Yes.
So, you
Yes.
invest one, you return, get two.
Yeah.
So, it's just straightforward.
Yep.
And ang difference lang is yung mint mo, nagre-replenish din yung mint sa
Meron
ano, 'di
sir,
ba?
meron
Meron
sir,
din siyang
meron
basic
Yeah.
replenishment
meron
eh.
din siyang basic replenishment.
Oo
May
eh.
may
So,
may
but
basic
the difference,
salary.
yeah, but the basic difference with Mintworks and let's say something like Lords of Waterdeep is Lords of Waterdeep, you have a set number of currency. Let's not call them workers anymore. Set currency that replenishes every turn na at the same rate.
Yep.
Sa Mintworks, yung currency na yon, siya mismo yung ginagamit mo.
Yep.
Sa Lords of Waterdeep, you convert the basic currency into something else, which is cubes. And then later
Right.
on, you convert that again to another form of currency na kailangan mo
Which
pa rin gamitin yung base currency mo.
yep.
Mhm.
Do you get what I mean? I'm pretty
Yes.
sure
Yes.
everybody who's watching gets
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's
So it's basically you're trading something for something else
Mhm.
that you're hoping would be more valuable towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
mhm.
So
Parang
like
buhay.
yeah, so like in Lords of Waterdeep, at its essence, you can like take a what do you call those? The quests, right? The quests are the ones
Yes.
that give
Yep.
points. So you take a quest, you look at its requirements, you can convert those into
Yep.
actions, and then you
Mhm.
Mhm.
can kind of see what is the
Most
points
efficient.
to action ratio of this card.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
that's kind of how you get a sense of the balancing. Generally, the lower points would probably have a lower ratio, while
Mhm.
the higher points would have a higher ratio
Yes.
because they're riskier to get.
Yeah.
So,
And
so yeah,
what's also interesting with, and this is now how they sort of add flavor to worker placement games. tama ka dun na meron silang areas or spots that are giving you a good yield, but it's not always just one option. Parang there are some in like in Lords of Waterdeep. Technically speaking, you could say warriors and the orange ones, the purple ones, the white ones, the black ones. They're technically equal, right? They're if you go to a spot that gives you two of one color and another one that gives you two of one color, you're technically in the same point value. Now,
Mm.
the way they add a wrinkle to this design so that there's an underlining new sort of sorting of importance for these
Mm.
resources is naglagay sila ng each of the players have a personal affinity to certain quest type. And the quest type that, for example, I'm more battle-oriented quest ng character ko, I gain more points in quests. Mas valuable sa akin yung warriors or yung orange.
Mm.
And if marami kaming ganun, mataas ngayon yung demand doon
Yeah.
sa warriors, and suddenly mahirap siyang makuha, and then it's more valuable, and every time you're able to get that as compared to your opponent's actually lagging behind, costing them those currency nga, the time currency that's costing them to lag behind. And I think that's where they start to add, parang you have a way to convert already. If you're doing the math in the design, every worker placement spot you can already assign a numerical value. Pero to add, and this is where game design happens, to add a wrinkle to sort of obfuscate that formula. Kasi yung problema naman, pagka yun ganun ka-clear, edi wala nang game. Kasi nga, okay, well, you went there, since I can't go there, I've already lost 1 point. Diba? Parang ganun ka-simple, and it's no longer a game if that's the case. So ginagawa nila is that they change that importance. So para nagkakaroon ng sort
Mhm.
order yung
Yeah.
yung location.
And then to add to that pa, you have, let's say again, Lords, let's say as an example, not all cubes, even though all cubes are equal in points, they're not equal in potential.
Right.
So, for example, in Lords, the whites and purples, the clerics and wizards, though they are just 1 point, like the thieves and the warriors, the black and the orange, the purples and whites are can be used to do quests that would give a better ratio of points. So on their own, as a single cube, it's equal, but it has the potential to be converted into something worth more points as compared to the black and the orange. So I think that's where, for me, that's where asymmetry comes in for like worker placement games. A perfectly symmetrical game kasi can get pretty boring. But when you,
Yes.
because things are symmetrical, so things are more obvious, things are easier to analyze. But when you add asymmetry, like the purple and white cubes are technically the same as the black and the orange cubes, but
Right.
not really. So that's where it becomes more interesting. And
Agree.
another thing also that Ron was saying ko, so yon, diba, parang the nagkakaroon ng specialization, like yon, if you're in the orange or you will go into that. That's also why I think worker placement is a very good type of game, because it enables a lot of different play styles. You could play worker placement game in a solo kind of way, wherein I'm just making the best out of the situation, trying to score as many points, focusing on my things, right? But you can also play it, and this is how I enjoy playing worker placement, by watching everyone else and seeing, okay, this person needs this, or these people nag-aagawan sila sa warrior or sa wizardry stuff. So I know that the other resources, the other spaces that they don't need are going to become more available. So now
Right.
I can capitalize on that. I can kind of go through the probabilities in my head that, okay, this spot will probably be occupied and this spot will probably not be occupied. So I can base my strategy on that. So for me,
Mhm.
that's interesting because it allows for a wide variety of players. You can
Mhm.
have players that are just, I'm focusing on my thing. I just like building my own engine and la la la. But you can also have players who are more like into the mind games and like trying to look into what people are doing. So yeah, it has a wider range of player
Yeah,
base.
yeah. I'm
I
gonna
have a
share
question,
lang.
Nico.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Since you play like that, 'di ba? You
Mm,
you say you tend to look at what other people are going for and then
mm.
avoid that. Uh mababa sa yung mababa ang valuation mo dun sa first player spot?
Yes, mababa yung value. I
Yeah.
rarely go for first player spot.
Yeah.
Kasi for me, it's a wasted action. Because
Mhm.
why do I need that priority when I can more or
Yep.
less figure out what I need anyways? Why will I waste an action that? So I rarely go for
Mhm.
the first. And like when
Yeah.
I play Agricola, I rarely go for the family expansion
Mhm.
because at least with
Talaga?
Aya's family, everyone goes for family expansion. And because they're all gunning for that, they sometimes are spending more resources and turns to get that
Mhm.
when when it's not really that parang hindi na siya worth it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's I enjoy since worker placement is public info. It's like analyzing, oh, what do
Yeah,
they
that's
need?
that's also something that's very apparent with worker placement, no? That
Mm,
um with card games, a lot of that information is very secret. What you can play and
mm,
what you can trigger on your turn,
mm,
that's secret. Dice games, yeah, if there are rolling, there's a lot of randomness. With worker placement game, it's open info. Almost everything is all very open info. The only thing that is not revealed, technically, not unless siniko yung kalaro mo, is where you intend to go. Yun lang yung supposedly secret mo,
Mm.
except kung may kalaro kang katulad ni Nico, then that's also lost.
you,
Revealed
you
na
know
rin.
what happened? You know what happened then? Kasi so, di ba si Aya has been playing a lot of board games online.
Mhm.
So, di ba, she's been playing with, basta sa Tabletop Gateway PH, they've been playing a lot, ganun. And then I haven't been doing work, playing video games. Tapos we played Architects for the,
Mhm.
parang, oh, I haven't opened it yet, so let's try it out. So we opened it, we played it. Tapos, hindi ko na ma-predict si Aya because she's been playing so much. Nag-iba na yung ano kasi yon I kind of at least when I've played with some people a few times, I kind of get a glimpse of their play style. So I kind of
Mhm.
can estimate not only for what they need, but like, okay, this based on their play style, they're gonna play safe, or okay, based on their play style, they're gonna play risky. Pero yun, because of what happened with Tabletop Gateway PH, naging unpredictable si Aya. So like, that's why I haven't won against her in Architects because
Mhm.
hindi ko na siya mabasa, hindi ko na mabasa yung ginagawa niya. So, yeah,
Mhm.
there's that.
Yeah, I play Brewcrafters, which was inspired from Agricola. And I agree, Nico, dun sa sinabi mo nga na sometimes forcing yourself to get that extra worker is more work than just finding the most optimal location.
Yeah.
And if there are innovations, di ba parang katulad sa Agricola, if there are innovations that can buy you more sort of effective turns anyway, I think they are a
Mm,
better value for your single worker placement. Same thing with Dune Imperium. There are ways for you to, di ba, to be able to play an extra um, worker, uh, spend another turn, but at the same time, dahil nga nag-combine na siya sa deck building, yes, you are able to send more workers out, pero nabawasan din yung kamay mo for buying. So meron na
mm,
siyang ganong extra economy.
mm,
The one I'm showing on screen right now is Harbor, and in Harbor you only have one worker. Your
mm,
single worker will go from one. It has to move, and ang objective niya is to build seven buildings. Of course, it's still points at the end, no? But those seven buildings, interesting sa kanya, ayan yung worker locations, those cards. Yan din yung tinatry mong i-build. Yan din yung pwede mong puntahan. And even yung mga na-build ng kalaban mo, pwede mo rin puntahan, may extra lang bayad. Pero ang makulit lang sa kanya, it's generating you these resources. Yan yung stock market na nakikita mo na naka-arrange siya. Wood, ano ba yan? uh, stone,
Cows,
wood, meat, and fish.
fish.
Pero kung may nag-ship niyan, mag-iikot yung market, babagsak yung presyo niya, tapos mag-uusok lahat. So, this is naman where they created that wrinkle again na, okay, you have all of these worker spots, you have this parang way to generate fish, pero after somebody sells fish and biglang $2 na lang siya per fish na resource mo, then suddenly all of those worker spots are no longer important. Like,
Mhm.
okay. Diba?
Yeah.
So, um, something also interesting with the design nga, it's open information, pero if games are able to change that information and cause a rehash in your brain, some people like it, some people don't. But in the end, kahit ganun siya, that sort of ebb and flow, no? Parang, I like what you illustrated dito, Nico, if you can share,
Mhm.
parang yung
Oh,
sort
okay.
of
I'll share
investment.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a sige. So this is, imagine they're playing. So yeah, if there meron ba tayong viewers here who'd wanna help? Okay. So this is a graph of the time of the game. So turns on the x-axis, y as your points. Can
Mhm.
you guess the strategies of the different players? So blue. So can you see the blue player? What
Blue
is
is
blue?
is
What's their strategy?
they're working with their set of resources, and they're chugging along with their kung ano yung meron sila, it's working with what is available. They don't add new workers or new innovation. They're just getting their
Yeah.
objective and getting points.
I,
Si Blue si
I would
safe player.
Safe
Yeah, I would
players siya.
describe yon blue as the safe player. Whenever
Mhm.
they get enough resources, cash it in, get the points, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Sa ano ba sa mga nanonood baka may gustong mag-guess. So si Green, how about Green? What do you guys think of the green player?
Si Green, si Green medyo mid, parang he likes, they like to get the bigger quest, but it's not too
Mhm.
parang it's if it's big enough, nagmamadali pa rin sila. They
Mhm.
still have a sense of urgency
Yeah.
na if I need to be able to accomplish this quest, but I need to extend a little bit. But
Mhm.
if I achieve that quest, cash it in.
Yeah. Okay, so yan, si Green is more
Si
like
Green
the
is Green is the medium term.
yeah,
Ang
medium term.
medium term ang horizon niyan.
Mhm.
Oo. How about si Yellow?
Ito daw,
Yellow.
sabi ni Frederick, I think Green collects something first, parang willing to sacrifice a turn to get something bigger.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mid-turn.
Si Yellow yan yung combo player.
Mhm.
Hindi mo pa alam yung ginagawa niya, tapos
Si
biglang
Yellow,
magkakaroon ng explosive turn yan.
Yeah.
si Yellow the whole time, walang score. So, parang kayo, nagigits niya kaya yung game? tapos, tapos ipon lang siya ng ipon.
Yeah.
Tapos parang, ha?
There,
Anong ginagawa
there's
niya?
there's actually two explanations for Yellow eh.
Okay.
This is actually the first explanation is siya yung engine builder. Nag-focus lang muna siya sa engine building, tapos mamaya will reap the rewards of that engine.
Right.
So that's the
Yeah.
the first explanation. The second explanation is kinda the actually playstyle ni Aya to. Ito yung collect ng collect tapos bubuhos bigla. So parang
Yes.
it's a risky play in case the game ends na biglaan. Parang di mo na but it's also a somewhat safer play because as long as you have all your resources with you, you have that flexibility to shift around.
Yeah.
Right?
And if the game permits unlimited resource
Yep.
Yes.
slots, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Oo.
Tsaka
Kasi
ito
may
yung
mga games kasi na may finite amount that you can keep.
Yeah. Although ito din yung player na minsan kino-call out ng mga iba. Yung mga, huy, ba't ang dami mong kahoy? Yung mga ganun. They have
Gitaw
this.
mo na.
Parang si Sir Freddy, tingnan mo, 20 na yung ore niya, parang gano'n. So, nga, no, ba't ang dami mong gano'n? Paano mo nakuha yan? So, that's yellow. Kasi red, for
Nag-iipon lang
me,
ako.
anyone who, for red,
Si Red nag-change of plans. Ito yung nag-pivot. Parang,
iba yung explanation ko kay red.
Okay. Sige, go.
Any guesses?
Ano ba itong ano? Cielo, okay. Si Clint, ang sabi niya, Cielo, yung naawa ka kasi di marunong tapos parang naman na. Yes.
Pwede.
Yes. Agree.
si Red, actually, the red is essential, I think. For personally, I think red is essential in a worker placement game.
Si Red a banger.
Pwede, pero there's another aspect to it. Any other guesses?
Sige. Din natin. Let's give them some time pa. They're
Note
guessing
that
pa.
that's the end of the game.
Si Red yung yung humahabol sa last turn.
Hindi pa.
Si Red yung hindi umabot.
Sirit na si Red.
Sirit. Sige.
Si Red yung nag-focus sa lahat ng hidden objectives.
Oo nga.
So, on the track, parang kulelat siya. Pero pagdating sa dulo, parang, I accomplished this, tapos add all of that to the track. And then biglang, nasa taas na siya.
Yes. Agree.
But that feels more like a ticket to ride thing than a worker placement thing.
It is, but there are a lot of that is true, but there are also a lot of worker placement games with hidden points right at the end.
Yeah.
Or
some modern game worker placement design, na siya. Marami nang ganun. You could say na worker placement si Pan Am, and I've seen a play in Pan Am kasi Pan Am is worker placement and stocks. So I've seen a play na medyo nag-engine build ng konti, laid out a good set of planes, tapos nag-generate siya. Meron din na talaga nag-stock play. Tapos may isa na, okay, I can't compete there anymore. And then dun lang talaga siya sa parang hidden points. Kasi merong isang na, if you have this route, you get this point. If you have this route, you get this point. Doon siya nag-focus. So technically, walang binili sa kanya si Pan Am. Never siya nag-exit. Pero humabol siya sa points dahil doon sa hidden objectives. Agree.
Yeah. It also could be like alternative tracks, like let's say Raiders, diba, yung armor track mo, right?
Yeah.
You get extra points, bonus points. It's not points that are on the major score thingy that goes around the board.
Right. Yep.
And I said that it's essential because for me that's where the catch up of the game comes and adds the tension. Because if you have a worker placement game and your score is based solely on what is visible on the track, at any time you can tell who's leading and who's not. And that adds all sorts of other things like king making, get all sorts of stuff that reduces like the fun of a worker placement. Because for me, that's what's a good thing about the worker placement is anyone can win. You don't know until the very end once you've counted everything.
Actually, yun yung that's one of the biggest problems with Kalos. Was all the information is on the board.
Yeah.
And there's no randomness. There's no
there's
no
nothing
random
to
quest.
hide.
There's nothing to hide. So the problem with that is the gameplay is kind of like chess. Dahil if somebody's ahead, it's really hard to overtake that person until he makes a mistake. He makes a mistake. So yun yung biggest problem nung Kalos. So yung mga early versions ng mga worker placement, yun yung nagiging problema niya as a game. Some people like that kind of game, but most people don't. Dahil hindi nga siya random. So usually talaga kung sino yung mas may experience or sino yung mas marunong, siya na yung panalo.
Yeah. So yun, I put this also to illustrate the fact that in a well-designed worker placement game, all these different paths should be valid.
That's true.
You
Agree.
can't have like, okay, only red works, because then that will become the dominant strategy. It has to
Yeah.
be, you're sort of just adjusting to what is the current state, what do the players want, what has the randomness created in terms of abundance or deficiency of different resources. So I mean, since we're talking about game design of this, this is something that you have, if you're designing worker placement, you have to be conscious of it. Oh, I'm
Yes.
using that. You can that you allow all these different play styles to be valid.
Mm-hmm.
Although, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the blue should be less like less because it's safe, right? Supposedly the safe version.
Agree on this. I recently played
Mhm,
Dwellings of Elder Vale.
mhm,
And in Dwellings, there's so many areas you can have parang this engine building portion, getting spirits. Pero ang ginawa ko was like, well, paano ba manalo? If you're able to deploy your huts, your villages, okay, paano gawin yon? Gawin mo itong mga worker placement na to, you get these resources. So ginawa ko lang siya, as in literal parang 7 turns. As in sinunod ko lang ano yung
mhm,
instructions. Tapos nanalo kasi nga, everybody was still building their engine. Like, oo,
mhm.
maybe they
Yeah.
should, and siguro pwede rin naman ako maharangan.
Uh-huh.
Kaso, parang by the time that they realized what I was doing, I was just simply
Mhm.
just, okay, na-deploy ako, I'll get a new worker, tapos I'll spread around again and then get the resources and then get another worker. So parang, there's something,
Mhm.
feels easy. So tama ka doon na it might create a negative play experience kasi players are feeling that they're becoming stronger tapos this player was never invested on anything just figuring out how many carrots do I need. Okay, I go here, get carrots. I go there, get another carrot. Okay, I cash in. Okay, done. And
Yeah.
you do that for like 7 rounds. Okay, I've deployed all my seven. So,
Mhm.
parang medyo nakakainis di ba? Pagka
Al-
ganun yung
Although I think that's also why the innovation in that strategy is variable length games, right?
Mm,
Because now you're also giving a start pa lang ng game, you're giving the signal to all the players that anyone can end it if they do something.
right,
So
right.
suddenly, it's not anymore na just, oh, the guy who did the most basic thing won while everyone was still building up. Parang people have to watch that now. Parang, okay,
Right.
this person doing the basic thing might suddenly end the game. So it
Yep.
becomes, yeah, becomes a strategy now. So yun.
Yeah.
Um, okay.
Is there anything
Oh,
to
okay.
add?
This is something I put because okay, this is something that I was thinking about, and it kind of blew my mind as a designer. Okay, so just bear with me first. I'm gonna. Um, do you do you know the concept of a open loop and closed loop system? This is an engineering term.
A
So
little bit.
okay,
A little bit.
so a open loop system. So that's the top one. Here we go. Okay, this is basically you put an input into a system and it creates an output.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's it. So, for example, what's an open loop system? Like a gas burner, a kitchen stove, right? How much gas you put in is how hot the flame becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an open loop system. A closed loop system is something wherein the system self corrects. So an example for a closed loop system would be an air conditioner or a
Mm-hmm.
refrigerator, something with a thermostat. So when the air conditioner is trying to hit, let's say, 16 degrees, um, it's actually there's a thermometer inside it, and then if it's below 16 degrees, it starts to use less energy. But if it's
Mm-hmm.
above 16 degrees, it starts to cool more. So there's a feedback mechanism
Right.
which self corrects. So with most worker placement games, I have a point to this. So just let. So with most worker placement games, in the classical worker placement, the spots are kind of like an open loop system.
Yeah.
You put something there, you get a thing. Doesn't There's no state involved. There's no
Mm.
state based thing involved. And then you take that to the like next level open worker placement spot, which is like these closed loops. These are like let's say spots wherein every round you add wood and it
Right.
accumulates until someone takes it. So there is a state, it's kind of state based, and there's also self correction in a way, because once there's too much of something, then a player would want to get it, right? So
Mm. Mm-hmm.
there's a self correction part involved. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, as a designer, I realized that this static effect part, this is actually where it becomes hard to balance the spots, because since you just
Mm.
have an input and you get a something, then that spot will always have a static value to it, a static resource that you're getting for an action. So because of that, you're going to have to hard balance it. You're going to have to set a value, and that's it. So that makes it harder for the math, right? Because now you have to hard balance every spot. Okay.
Yeah, and
Now,
then correlate that to your quests. If you can't
yes,
balance it on the spot, then you balance it on the points of the quest, and it
yes,
becomes this
yes,
parang really difficult formula
yes.
because
It's mhm. It's like in a
you're
mathematical formula, instead of a variable, it's a constant, right?
mm,
So you
mhm,
have to
mhm.
work with that constant. Okay. So that's that static effect. Now, with the state-based effect, it's less, because now you're allowing the players to make the judgment
Mhm.
on when something is worth getting and when something is not worth getting.
Yep.
Okay. So balancing wise, it becomes simpler and easier on the designer's end, because you're transferring the analysis of if a spot is worth getting or not onto the players. You're not forcing the designer now to think of to do the math. You're forcing
Right.
that math onto the players.
Yeah.
So I brought this up because as a designer, balancing is a pretty difficult part of game design. Also because it's if you get it wrong, then you have to do errata and whatever. But that's why I would suggest you try to do these more closed loop, state based type doing game design, so that it's less of a problem on you, and it's more of, well, if the players
Yeah.
didn't do their math right, then that's their problem. It's not your problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect example kanina nga yung harbor.
Mhm.
Technically speaking, every available worker spot to generate fish, meat, stone, and wood, they're technically equal. But
Mhm.
the game, because of that sort of market demand thing,
Mhm.
changes the value of those worker placement spots. And now that is based on that, yun nga, sabi mo nga na, oh, ang taas ngayon nung fish. And
Mhm.
as soon as somebody now decides, okay, well, I'm gonna go into fish, and people are now racing into fish and they sell it, suddenly lahat ng mga nagkumuha din ng fish are
Mhm.
now like, okay, I'm now with fish that it's instead of selling at 8, they're gonna sell at 2. I'm not gonna sell it, but kailan pa tataakit yung fish ulit? But at the
Mhm.
same time, because of that parang state-based effect nga na the other players who are now reading to that, hindi ako si Fish, doon ako sa katabi
Mhm.
niya.
Yeah.
si Wood. Kasi pag akit ni Fish, pag bagsak niya, pwede kong ibenta na si Wood. So parang
Mhm.
ganun yung ano niya na at least hindi na napunta sa'yo. Parang
Yeah.
they're all technically the same now. They just have different flavor. But the added realism to the game is now it's actually the players deciding what is valuable and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to finish this, also, could you go to the next slide?
Sure.
Yeah. So, and now that's where also, so you're right na parang yan, it's you're forcing which is good in a lot of ways. You're forcing the complexity onto the players. So you're making the game also deeper and richer. Because that's a problem with
Mm,
like the static spots, is that yun, that's it. So there's no extra analysis going on. There's no extra nuance into the value of the different spots. That's why in Lords of Waterdeep, you have the basic spots, the weak spots, and the stronger spots, which are like the stores and the expansions, and eventually the weak spots are disregarded, right?
Yep.
So just to finish the thought, so why was I thinking about this? Because I was thinking of it because of Architects of the West Kingdom. So I think Architects took that closed loop system and even brought it even farther, because now not only is it a state-based effect. Oh, I didn't put a label. Wherein it's only the game interacting with the player. Because when with the spots, na it's just resources accumulating. At that point, it's only like if it's your turn and you're deciding if you're gonna take it or not. It's only really between you and the game. The other
Yes.
players, not really that big a deal unless you skip on it. But
Mhm.
with Architects now, there is another level of feedback, which is the other players also correcting the spots. Because
Mm.
once you've placed too many of your workers and that spot becomes way too efficient, you're now forcing the other players to come in and break that.
Yep.
So I'm really impressed with this because as a designer, it's also parang bala kayo sa balancing nyo. Parang, no, this is the system. Bahala kayo mag-figure out when is the right time to disrupt people, when is the right
Mhm.
time to go all in. So it also makes it much easier on the designer. You're forcing the balancing onto the players. And it has the same. See, Sir Freddy would always bring this up in games with an auction. Um, with a game with an auction, there's no need to balance it because the players will self-balance. They'll figure out what
Mhm.
the market value of this is. And
Yep.
for me, that's what Architects is so interesting about, is that it took that concept of self-balancing and put it into worker placement.
Yeah,
So
lumalabas yung mga ganun, yung mga philosophy kong ganun sa pagka-capitalistic ko, no?
yeah, but
Let the market decide.
yes,
Yes.
that's
Let the
basically what.
market set the price.
Yeah, but that kind of system is basically what that kind of thinking is basically what Architects did for worker placement. It took that
Yes.
Mm.
self-balancing, put it on worker placement,
Yeah.
and I can't look at worker placement the same way again after. Like who
Yeah.
naglagay pa ako ng spreadsheets and like doing the math and whatever. No, who needs to do that? Just do it what Architects did and let the players figure it out themselves.
Yeah, that's
So
Yeah.
why I love Architects so much right now.
mhm.
It's my favorite. Uh dahil na mention mo nga to, naalala ko tuloy yung fix ko sa dati when DC deck building, we ran a tournament, and obviously the characters there are super imbalanced. And then my
Mm.
solution was just let them bid VP for it. You
Mhm.
pick four random characters and then let them bid. Oh, you want to bid 5 VP if you want to play Aquaman, then bid 5 VP. Let the players decide, and that fixes the inherent imbalance of the game.
Yep.
Mhm.
Now that's an added rule na ginawa lang namin for the tournament because people were so excited they wanted to play a tournament, but I knew the game was super imbalanced based on the character. So yung self-fix, let the players fix it for themselves,
Mhm.
'di ba?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's such a great mechanic, and the players can't blame you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Di
Yes.
ba? Yun yung maganda ron eh.
Actually,
Parang,
Yeah,
pangit
yeah.
ng tune na to. Imbalance yung game ni Nico. Hindi, ikaw nag-decide niyan eh. Di ba?
Yep, yep. That's why I'm going to do this for every other game I'm going to make now so that bahala kayo, you can't blame me. It's your problem.
You
Mali
made that
kayo
decision, di
mag-analyze.
ba?
Oo.
yeah. Pero although there's still some math to it, no? Siyempre, even if they got what they wanted and so it costed them, may konting math pa rin yun to keep the numbers close. Kasi baka naman
Mhm.
masyadong malaki yung gap na pagka
Yeah.
nanalo siya at namali ng bid ng isa, hindi nyo na kailangan maglaro. Kasi
Yes.
tapos na yung game.
Yeah.
Pero Sir Freddy, nalaro niyo yung ano, di ba? Yung lock up. So it's worker placement na
Yes.
may bidding.
Yes.
Naka-face down tapos you're actually gonna I'm putting two guys here. Like ano ba
Yep.
nilagay niyo nun? And that that one is interesting kasi parang okay, worker placement pero hindi ka siguradong may makukuha ka. Tapos
Kasi
pwede ma-bid out.
hindi siya na worker placement kasi hidden yung values eh. And
Mm.
your workers are not your workers have values assigned to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hindi siya straight up na worker placement na area denial or action denial because everyone can go to the same space except that you don't know how much
Who will
they've
actually win in
invested
the
into it.
end.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yun eh. So, yung interaction na yun. Pero, ano siya, para siyang controlled pa rin kasi everybody still has the same characters. You just don't know
Yeah.
where they're going.
Yes.
Diba?
Yes.
Iba-ibang values ng characters. May pagka-kemet na,
Hidden Hidden
kemet
yung
na yung
placement.
combat system niya na hidden. You know,
Yeah.
everybody has the same guards but ano yung ginamit niya?
Mm.
Yes.
Or ano yung nagamit niya na? Diba?
Yep. So, yun. So I hope we didn't ramble around too much. But if you guys get to join me and Nico in our conversations, si Nico masarap talagang ano yan i-pick yung brain yan kasi he'll just go into this mathematical tangent and actually ito yung ano yan, yung graphical analysis dyan and then suddenly you now go realize okay, yan pala ang yan pala ang ibig sabihin ng maging game designer. Like you've mathed it out. But I get it kasi na-experience ko rin yung challenge na yan when I was building sort of like a quest system for Impact Financial. And I couldn't understand what's wrong. I can't figure out my math. Bakit hindi ko ma-achieve yung same feeling ng quests ng ng Lords of Waterdeep or the other more popular games, bakit hindi mag-balance out? And my mistake was actually coming very rooted from the beginning. That I never placed an economic value for my turns and an economic value on a baseline. And I was just making assumptions on parang sinolve ko yung math Nico, diretso ako sa VP. Nag-assign na agad ako ng points and now I'm trying to figure out what resources is needed to achieve that VP. And then, of course, doon na siya hindi nag-work. But now, of course, years later, although naging solution ko sa kanya, tanggalin ko na lang yun. Hindi ko magawa eh. Scrap that. Cut the fat. Diba? But now, if I would revisit it again, at least I'm going na, okay, in order for you to understand how to design your objectives and your quest, kailangan nag-gets mo muna. And in worker placement, nag-gets mo muna yung root currency, the base currency, which is ano bang value ng workers na yan every time you use it. And once you have that, then you can start building. So hopefully that gives you guys, our viewers, a glimpse of the world of worker placement. And I don't think this is a definitive
definitely not.
There's too many worker placements. We can definitely revisit this from in the future. Probably bring in a game. O tara, deconstruct natin Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Si Raiders.
Raiders. Oh, I love Raiders. Ako, I know you guys like architects, but I like the simplicity of Raiders. Like, one, take one. Place one, take one.
Yung poll ni Jake, yung top 100 games, ganun. Ako lang yung bumoto ng number 1 Raiders eh. I know kasi yun yung description ko yun tas people who voted Raiders number 1, one person. So like, okay, that's
yeah, I really like the simplicity of Raiders and just that sort of exploring upwards and that sense of urgency nga. Okay, we moved on. So very very.
Although I concede that Architects is the better design.
Oh yeah, sure. But I agree.
Yeah, but I like, I don't know, but I just like playing Raiders more. But yeah, but yes. Architects is the better design.
Mas chill si Raiders for me. But yeah, and actually that was an inspiration of my card game na ginawa yung Epidemic. So same, 'di ba? You place and you
Mm.
take. So yun yung
Mhm,
inspiration
mhm.
niya. You have an effect for placing, you have an effect for taking. So, oh, galing ah. Worker placement na agad yun. Ano lang, lagay tapos tanggal, tapos yun na. Lupit. Anyway, so thank you everyone for joining us. I hope this was informative, at least for the game designers that are thinking of designing games. So I hope this gives you some insight of how to look at the world of worker placement. And hopefully, once you encounter a new worker placement game, you can also kind of look into ano ba yung math ng game na to? Ano ba yung how did they build the intricacies? Saan nanggaling yung randomness? Saan nanggaling yung wrinkles and nuance of the game?
Mhm.
So, you can follow us on our different social media channels. Of course, LarongAtin. We design the local games and also some foreign games that was actually published. So you can follow us in LarongAtin Facebook page, and of course, you can also watch the rest of the Variable Play Network shows.
Mhm.
So, thank you everyone for joining us. Please stay safe. Keep safe, everyone. Until next time, see you guys next month.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.